Hello, everyone. It's Dawn and Katie here. Hey, Katie.
Hey,
I see you're wearing your Green Bay Packer gear today.
yeah, just
I
throw
love it.
something on quick and go with it.
I love it. Same here. Same
Thank you.
here. I'm trying to scrape. I'm so behind with stuff this week, especially crime stuff.
Oh, what a
So,
week.
what a week. What a week. So, while the Alex Murdaugh murder trial was wrapping up, many people might have missed that the Chad and Lori Daybell, Vallow, whoever the heck they are this week, people. There's been a lot of hearings over the last month that kind of go under the radar unless you're really paying attention,
Hmm.
particularly because they're not allowed to use cameras in on that trial. They're not going to be, which is
None? Like, not
no,
even for like the
zero,
murder trial?
zero.
Oh, I hate
Audio
that.
only, audio only. And so you got to listen. And so I've been listening. There's been some like Sunday last minute hearings and that kind of thing. And so, but ultimately, and I didn't get to finish, full disclosure here, I didn't get to finish um, listening. Hi, Julia. Hi. Nice to see you. Welcome. So I didn't get to finish listening to the hearing, but basically I did see the outcome just from the thumbnail,
Hmm.
that the Chad Daybell and the Lori Vallow Daybell the trials have been severed. So there'll be two separate trials, which is really a
Yeah.
huge burden on that small community.
Okay.
It's um it's as a result of Chad Daybell's extremely, in my opinion, annoying attorney. Okay, I'm going into this one full disclosure. That man gets on my every nerve,
Oh,
and we'll be able to
no.
talk about that as this goes forward. But so supposedly, Lori's trial will go forward in April, right?
Seriously?
Yeah. So, but now that it's
Whoa.
been severed, she might change her tune and plea. We don't know what's going to happen, but um, this attorney of Chad Daybell's is a real piece of work. So, but we'll get to that. Love to hear what you all think if you're following that trial. Also, we had the Charles Adelson hearing at the beginning of the week on Monday, which I also didn't get to watch live,
Yeah.
but in fact, I didn't even get to hear it yet. I mean, the whole thing, but I did get to watch, excuse me, two of my
Ooh,
favorite
sorry.
YouTube lawyers, Judy from Asian American Legal Focus and James from Deep Dive True Crime, also known as Mentor Lawyer, just
Yep.
chat about what happened. So I know the results, and I thought
Yep.
it'd be kind of cool to go through an article that I posted in my community pages because that summarizes some interesting thoughts that we could talk about on that hearing and what it might mean
Yeah.
overall. And then, of course, we had the sentencing of Alex Murdaugh, which I did not see, but I'm not surprised it was live. I didn't really. Oh, I will watch it eventually, but I just so everyone knows, I'm trying to catch up. Last night, I was trying to get through the closing arguments for the defense. And then when I finally got home yesterday afternoon, of course, I recorded another podcast last night, unrelated
Hmm.
to tree crime. And so I was trying to get through that, and of course, we had a verdict. So that I was disappointed in that. That scares me as a person, as a citizen. That scared me. This whole trial scared me for reasons that I've mentioned in previous live streams, so we can talk about today.
Yeah.
But I only today got to the second half, and then I fell asleep listening to the closing arguments. I got through half because I wanted to take notes, and I
Hmm.
was just so exhausted yesterday. This whole week has been exhausting, and so in migraine management and Medicaid, all
Mm.
that. Yeah, so I, to be honest, and Jim Griffin's closing for the defense was very um it put me to sleep. It was so not I mean, at least he didn't irritate me like
Ugh.
some lawyers do. Like some lawyers, yeah. But yeah, it went on and on, but I was able to take notes, and I did listen to the second half today. So I did got to take notes on both of them, and I'll share my notes. And I'm just curious. I know a lot of the hoopla is done now, but since we put so much effort in this, and we were desperately trying to go live before the verdict and actually do a verdict watch together, everyone. But I wasn't available yesterday at all. I tried to fit it in, but it wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't have happened. So, Katie,
it was a crazy day.
It was crazy. I am going to say something, and then I'm just giving you the floor, okay? It doesn't matter what trial it is. When it comes to the verdict, and when it's guilty and it comes to the sentencing, I really sober up. I don't enjoy it. It's tragic. It's serious. And all I want to say is I did watch the verdict because you and I were texting and you were keeping me posted. I was trying to watch the closing arguments before the verdict, but just so I could understand what the jury was going to, what the outcome would be either way. And I watched the verdict and I tried not to listen to any talking heads. And I think, it broke in. I must have had it still going and didn't realize, and it broke in for the press conference that, that the lawyers normally do. And I listened for a second when the attorney general came out, and I was like, what is this, some kind of Academy Awards show? And I turned it off. I was really turned off by that. And that's just my personal view. For those of you who are celebrating and enjoy it, that's great. I'm not condemning anyone. I'm just saying, for me, I found it distasteful. People were hurt. People were murdered. It's not about your political career, dude. And this was all about his career. This sentencing was, and that scares me even more about the power of government to come in and try somebody, with sketchy evidence, let's just say. And like I said, I watched the Innocence Project work. I know there are a lot of people in prison who are trying to get out because they are actually innocent. I'm not saying that Murdaugh was Alex, whatever his name is. I'll just be so glad we don't have to go through that again. Like, is it Alex? Is it Alex? Is it Murdaugh? Is it Murdoch? Whatever.
Yeah, right.
Whatever.
Al. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me. Tell me what's your feeling, Katie? Because we all know Katie has a totally different viewpoint than I do. We love it. That's why we're here.
I was completely shocked at how fast they came back. 3 hours was crazy. I 100% thought it would be a hung jury. And I'm sure you saw, but earlier that morning, that juror got kicked off the day of the final.
Yeah.
Because she had went and talked to at least 3 other people about the case, claiming the innocence. And apparently there were some social media posts from her as well about. So she screwed that up.
You must be trying to get kicked off at that point. Like,
I don't know what she was doing.
Times. Yeah.
But if she had stayed, it would have been a hung jury. Because she said the whole time there was no way that they were going to convince her.
Oh, okay. She would have hung it. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But they said, did you hear from the juror this morning on Good Morning America?
I literally just listened to that. Like, I'm just trying to catch up desperately. And I just listened. So I found that encouraging, that it wasn't all just guilty. They walked in, it's all guilty, right? Let's go. Let's do the paperwork. Because you can hardly finish the paperwork in that amount of time. And so that's what scares me, but I also understand they sat there for 6 weeks. It shouldn't have been 6 weeks. That was BS. I mean, that was, if I were a juror, and I said it throughout the trial, if I were a juror, I'd be so annoyed. I'd probably leave. I probably couldn't sit through that.
Yeah, that was a lot.
And so when I thought about it today, it's like, was that the tactic? Get them so like ready to just leave, especially going out on a Friday. This is all planned. Like, this is all tactical. So they weren't going to stay over the weekend after sitting there for 6 weeks. And I'm hoping they were at least going to be sequestered for the deliberations.
They were going to go home at 10.
Oh my goodness.
They were going to send them home at 10.
That is so scary because this is such a small community. The jury pool is so small. There was so much pretrial publicity. I mean, the whole thing is just,
I know.
It doesn't smell right to me. It doesn't
Well,
sit right.
even Dick Harpootlian said today, he's like, we thought about change of venue, but we went across the state and we pulled 10 people, and there's not a single person out there that hasn't heard of this case and doesn't know everything about this case. So, I mean, that even wasn't an option.
Wouldn't be personally affected, by it.
Yeah, true.
So I was encouraged, and I was wondering if you wanted to play that juror's comments, but since we both watched it, I mean, I was encouraged when he said there were 9 guilties, 2 not guilties, and 1 undecided.
Mm-hmm.
And that encouraged me. But how did they flip them so quick? Like, I would have been the most annoying juror on this. I mean, people would have hated me because I would have been like, "But this doesn't make sense." Like this.
I'm curious what I want to hear from one of them, just because I want to know what swayed them.
Yeah.
To go to guilty. My assumption is it's a timeline is one of them, and then they said another big thing. Him being on the witness stand was a big thing. They saw right through his lies.
Yes.
And they said, the host was like, oh, but his tears and his crying, you didn't see tears, you saw snot. Isn't that crazy?
He said. He didn't see, he was looking at his eyes. Yeah.
And then they said Dr. Kinsey on rebuttal was a really big thing. So that was interesting. That was a big swayer. And then the other thing, honestly, was a field trip to Moselle and seeing how small the property was, especially the feed room.
What does that mean, though? I don't understand.
Because the feed room was so small that there was no way that anybody else could have gotten in there and done it the way that the defense tried to say they did it.
Oh, I don't think.
Because the defense said,
Okay. All right, let's start there. That's a good place to start. I didn't get the impression that the defense was trying to attach themselves to any alternate theory as much as they were just trying to say there's a lot. And I still maintain it didn't happen the way that the prosecution said. And I think that's my opinion about all they were trying to say. I don't think they were I don't think anyone could argue that they were really attached to an alternate theory. If they were, we would have heard a whole lot more about it. Had video, CAD workups, all that kind of thing. So that I'm gonna challenge you on just because.
That's okay.
Yeah, and they had other alternate theories too, but I think they were just trying to get people to open their mind that a lot, and I still maintain, I've said all along, obviously it screams of him being responsible for some reason or another. But the problem I had with the prosecution, I remember you and I talking when prior to the trial, when the prosecution argued pre-trial hearing to get this motive in, to get all this financial crimes and all this in, because they were attaching it to the motive. But I don't think they really did a great job of attaching to the motive. I think they just used it as character assassination, and that is wrong. That is the problem I have, because it was so prejudicial. And it was and in the end, they didn't tie it up like I thought they were going to do. So I went into this thinking guilty. Yes, they're going to make sure this motive is clear, and that's what's going to, buy people in. But even the juror who spoke said it was just the fact that he wasn't truthful, that he was clearly lying about so many things.
Do you think without the financial stuff, though, that they still could have seen through his lie?
Yes, I think,
because
it was a big waste
without the
of time.
financial stuff, they proved he's a liar.
That's why I was so annoyed. They didn't need to do that. They didn't need to do that. And I thought it was wrong morally. I thought it was wrong legally. And it was super prejudicial. But they still could have argued the same way without that, because
Yeah.
especially because he lied about being in the kennel and he felt like he was compelled, he had to go in to explain why he lied. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that it would have been a cleaner case. I would have been much happier if they would have done it that way. I think it was a big problem for me. That was a big problem for me. And yes, absolutely. I think they could have.
That's fair.
It would have been way less messy, way less lengthy, way less of a circus.
And if they had, yeah, God, there were times where I'm just like, I don't even know what's happening anymore. That witness who was randomly throwing around the phone, like, that should have been struck so fast on. I could not believe that the prosecution got him up there and said that nonsense. Like,
about what?
That was crazy.
About which part?
The FBI agent that said he was just throwing the phone around in his office doing his test. Like, what?
There are so many points in this trial, including that one that I have in my notes written down, that it's like I'm deducting points for that, right? As a juror, I'm like,
same, me too.
Awful. This is a waste of my time. You are insulting our intelligence, please. That was really awful. Okay, Pappy says, I was surprised. I know. I was surprised that 2 jurors initially had a not guilty verdict, right? I was too. I thought it was going to be 12-0 from the beginning. Yeah. I figured 12-0 or maybe hung, but because the prosecution just stepped into it like so. And says, Katie, you can sip that drink again. It sounded like I don't know what I didn't hear it. Oh, did you go? I didn't hear it. That's funny.
That is so funny.
I dropped my phone. Apparently now I'm an expert phone wrecker. Yeah.
I'll pay you $350 an hour to throw your phone around.
When I was listening to that, I mostly listened. I literally had to come over and watch. I was like, are you kidding me? And that told me about the overconfidence of this prosecution and that they just had it in for him. And I know people have trolled me for this in the past, and I can't change this. I won't ever change this, but I will always have sympathy even for people who commit crimes. People who commit crimes too, are probably very damaged and hurt people too. And now this guy had all the privileges in the world, but I mean, but like even, I'm not going to mention any trials, but I will always try to see the other side. Yeah. And I will always, just for an intellectual challenge to myself, go into a trial trying my hardest to presume innocence. And even with the Daybell Vallow thing, it's like, what really happened there? Like, I know it's almost similar to Murdaugh in the sense that we know they're responsible for this, but what did they do? Like, how did it happen? What, the brother was involved, obviously, and his DNA is all over the kids and stuff like that. But he was the last seen with them in Yellowstone Park and all that. So, and Pappy says, I'm kind of sad that the trial is over. It was much better than most Lifetime movies I watch. Hey, and you know what? I know. And let's talk about this, because yesterday, Katie, we were texting and you said, so that's kind of anticlimactic, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's just done.
It's like, now what do I do with my time? We've been so invested.
I know.
What do I listen to now? Trust me, there's more crimes out there and we're here for it. Right. I am fascinated with the legal system. And I always was, but not on the crime side, more in the white collar area.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to be curious about it. One of the things that Griffin did bring up, and I was glad he did, was our constitutional right to burden of proof by the government and holding the government responsible for that, because we don't want people just thrown in prison because there's a hunch that they did it, right? And And there's also that that principle of we'd rather see 10 guilty people go free than a not guilty person imprisoned. And I don't think that standard was in any way applied in this case. And that makes me nervous. Nervous. Okay. All right. So here's what I have for notes. You want to go through some notes?
Well, hold on. Did you listen to Judge Newman? Did you listen to the sentencing?
No, I did not watch the sentencing.
Oh, darn. Okay. Then we'll chat about that next
time. I ran out of time. It's not that I just haven't done it yet. I'll do it later.
He did not mince his words. It was very clear that he thinks Alex is guilty. And
that was clear throughout the trial.
One of the best comments though was, of course, Alex said, "I would never hurt my wife and son." He can't say I would never murder them. He literally cannot say that. He says, I did not hurt
He did
them.
at other times say I did not murder Maggie.
Yeah. But then Judge Newman said something.
Yeah, I agree. It's sus. Yeah.
But Judge Newman said something along the lines of, it might not have been you, but the monster inside of you, especially when you're taking 60 opioid pills a day.
Right. And that's why I couldn't believe the defense didn't go for temporary insanity or something along those lines and stick him in I guess he didn't want to be institutionalized for the rest
that would have meant Murdaugh would have had to admitted guilt to do temporary insanity, correct?
Well, of course. Well,
yeah, so he would never do that.
Exactly. If you think about it, if you're insane, what are your words worth on either side
of
it?
Sure.
No, it would have meant that a doctor would have determined that that it was based on his, So I'd be careful with that language. Yeah. But no, I'm not surprised the judge didn't mince words. There was no doubt that he had his mind made up. I did not like what I did hear the judge say, that there was direct evidence. That is not true. There was zero direct and I did not like the lies. And I did not like to find out that the grand jury was given false information and then not corrected. They could have gone back.
Not corrected is the important part there. They could have
gone back and corrected it, and they didn't. That's just as bad to me as Alex lying.
Yes.
Okay?
No, I agree with that. They should have corrected that. Absolutely.
It's worse than Alex, although he's an attorney, so that's what makes it so horrible what he did, especially the financial crimes particularly. But it's worse. So double the points off for them for giving false. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel, because the government needs to be.
No, I agree with that.
The highest standard. They're holding people's lives in their hands. Yeah. Okay. What else?
I think. Oh, the other thing he said is, you're gonna see Maggie and Paul every night when you go to bed, Maggie and Paul when you go to sleep. They're gonna haunt your dreams, and you're gonna see them for the last time that they looked in your eyes. And I just thought that was, wow. It was just very.
Yeah. I agree with that.
It was heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
He probably already is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's okay. And then Pappy says, I like the judge's final words. He was very human and even talked about past personal relationships. Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to those. So I can't comment on them because I didn't hear them myself. So I often hear things, and we all hear things differently. So.
Mm-hmm.
And just a joke. Pappy's good with the jokes. In 9 months, how many children will be named Papa? I'm thinking Sarah. Maybe a cat, maybe a dog, maybe a retriever. I don't think that's bad. I mean, I named my cat after Coach LaFleur. Come on. It's not an insult.
There's going to be a lot of Bubbas out there is what there's going to be.
Especially. Anyhow. Okay. Yeah.
Did you see, when they were touring Moselle, they put a dog toy chicken in the kennel?
I saw that. I was like, what is this? It must have been there. Somebody put it there ahead of time, right?
No, I think they staged it. I think they put it in there to be like, look, this is where we would have put the dead chicken.
John Marvin still had control over that property.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But maybe somebody put it in there. Like, and they didn't catch it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there were a lot of
Oh,
people doing selfies and getting on that property. They had
yes.
yes. So anybody could have put it there. But I
Oh,
saw that. I
Lord.
was like, what is this? That's weird. Yeah, I didn't like that either.
Anyway.
That people were trespassing and taking
No.
selfies at the murder. I mean, there's so much garish stuff about these trials. I'm not here for that kind of stuff. I'm just
No.
not.
And the autopsy photos being released, I don't like that either. Somebody leaked the autopsy photos.
Oh, did they? I did not know that.
It's just dirty.
No.
There's no need for that. They're victims. Like, no. Yeah, I don't.
Absolutely.
That's not okay. But all right, let's talk about your notes, Dawn.
Well, you took notes too, right?
No, this week has been so insane, Dawn.
Okay, that's
with that funeral, and then my husband's been gone every night for work, and it's been.
I'm
it's
sorry
been a week.
that you lost a friend, a young friend.
Thank you. Yeah, it was my husband's. I mean, you can say it's his boss, but it was also a very good friend, and he was only 42, and it was a brain aneurysm.
Oh my
God!
God!
He left behind his 15-year-old and his 12-year-old twins and his wife, and it was brutal. It was a brutal funeral. It's been a brutal week and a half.
I'm so sorry.
It's been a lot.
That's so hard.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's been quite a week for me. I even had a little court appearance myself this week for a personal situation. That was fun. It's always fun.
At least you got to be you weren't the defendant. You were
I was the plaintiff. I am the plaintiff.
Plaintiff, that's the word.
And there is a defendant who's already been, it's already been ruled on. So we went back for something, and I just sat there and smiled and kind of tried not to roll my eyes because she's a habitual liar, and it's just like, but I know enough in my maturity that I now can claim I have, not to argue over every little thing, because that's not what we were there for. I mean, she didn't get the memo evidently, and so I just let the judge do her thing, and that was good. Next,
and it's done.
Thank you. Next step.
Yeah,
because there's more steps she doesn't know about. But okay, all right. So on the prosecution side, because of the way, so my notes are going to reflect the different styles and the way they were speaking. So I just wrote down what my response was because of the way they put the story together and walked us through, right? So for on the prosecution's side, he brought up immediately motive, means, and opportunity, right?
Yep.
So motive, means, an opportunity, and coming into culminating in a criminal act. What?
Motive doesn't have to be proven.
No,
it doesn't. But they brought it in. Is that?
They made that. Sorry, that's what I'm saying. That's what I've been saying. It's like, why? Yeah, that was their. They probably did it just to make sure they got him on the financial stuff.
Yeah,
which is kind of sad because they brought the murder charge to make sure he didn't wiggle out of any of the financial stuff, or to just like slam him so hard that he wouldn't have a chance, which is bullying. And I don't like it when governments bully, but that's what they did. That's what I think they did. Okay, so for motive, I put my opinion that the state proved motive 0 to 25%. And later on, I'm going to talk more about these. Okay, so I'm just saying initially, this is how I came into it. He brought up motive, and I think they failed. The fact that at 25% on the high side, okay? I think if anything, as we get down in the notes, I'm going to take away points for that because they put it out there and it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me personally. I mean, means, obviously, the means initially, again, just coming in. I wanted to put down my percentages, and then as he went through, I get in more detail. I came into it that the state proved means 50 to 100%, that he had the means, 50 to 100%. So again, I did a range.
Yep.
Opportunity, obviously, 100%. Okay, so then what I did was I took the low and the high side for those three things, if they were equal, right? Which they made them equal, which is their choice, which I think is a mistake. So if we went on the bottom side, motive 0, means 50%, opportunity 100, that's 150%. divided by 3. So that puts me in at 50% on the low side coming in. And if I average out the high side, I came in at 75. So just so everyone knows, that's where I came into the deliberations. Coming into the deliberations, I was at 50 to 75%, generally speaking, of the state proving motive, means, and opportunity. And that is their language. So I'm playing their game. Okay, 50 to 75%. So I was leaning toward that they proved the case, but low side 50%. Obviously, 100% there was a criminal act, but that is not going into my calculations because I don't know why he even mentioned that, but whatever.
Can I just speak to motive for a second and just give you I'm just going to give you a personal story here with the whole financial lying thing. I'm probably going to cry when I tell you this story, but 7 to 10 years ago, I became a stay-at-home mom 8 years ago. And with that, I became in charge of all of our finances, which was a really bad thing because I'm not the person who should be in charge of finances. We're just going to leave it at that. But my husband was the breadwinner, but he had no idea. He never looked at our bank account. He just trusted that I was paying bills and whatnot. Don, I got us in so far over our heads. We were told to file for bankruptcy. So that's when I finally had to come clean to my husband. When I was served papers on a credit card that was $10,000 in debt that he had no idea about. Because I couldn't afford the minimum.
Yeah.
That was a very scary time in my life. Because it's just easier to lie about it and keep hoping, keep trying to stay one step ahead, that at some point you're going to be able to make it through. And I just kept thinking, I can just pay $100 this week on this, or $100 this week on this, or, when I had to tell him, it was the scariest time of my life. And honestly, it's been 7 years and everything's been paid off, but, he still doesn't trust me with our finances, which that's fair.
Right.
There were absolute suicidal thoughts. I was also very pregnant with my youngest at the time, but
oh my gosh.
I remember thinking every single night it would just be easier to kill myself so he could get the insurance money and he could get himself out of all of it.
Right.
So I kind of, in a very small way, understand what Alec was going through. I had nowhere near millions of dollars in debt like he did, and I wasn't stealing from people to try and make it up, but I understand kind of the motive from a personal side of things, because when you're that far in, there's no way out, and you just think, maybe if I just do this one little thing, it'll fix it. If I can just stay one step ahead. But on that day, everything was crashing and there was no way out, and there was no way for him to see one step ahead. So I kind of get it. And that's just whether or not the state proved it. That's a whole nother thing.
Did you ever think about murdering your husband?
No, I thought it would be easier to murder myself.
Right. Did you ever think about murdering your kids?
No, never, okay. Never.
That's what I mean by it. Just to me personally, it's like, I don't get it. I don't get this.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. But that's the point, right? You didn't think about, you thought about taking yourself out, which he did by all accounts. And by the way, the dude that they said he hired to shoot him, he said when he came up on Alex, he had the gun to his head. But was it an act? I don't know. But that's what he said. I heard him say that with his own mouth. And there's going to be more about that stuff. So I think more is going to come out. We'll see. I don't think this saga is over. But although they might hide it. Okay, well, that's an interesting. I'm glad you got through that. I'm really glad.
Thank you.
I'm really glad you got through that. Okay, and Kane said the verdict was beyond wrong, and I did not follow the law about reasonable doubt, and I tend to agree with that. And then Pappy asked Kane, what doubt do you have? Julia says, I totally disagree. I went to the trial thinking he was innocent, but changed my mind. That's so interesting. After the kennel video. Yeah. Yep. Just like what the jurors said. I went in thinking he was guilty. Maybe that's the difference. I was trying to check myself. I always try to check myself. So maybe I overchecked. I don't know. But Kane says very possible that it was drug dealers, boat crash, revenge, fine. I know entire community had motive. This is what I was saying. Okay, let me get to my notes if you want. Do you guys want to hear my notes? Because I think we're going to find
now we do.
on
Go
both
ahead.
sides. And please interrupt anytime, Katie. It's not a problem. Okay, so I said that coming into deliberations, I thought he was guilty, but I'm at the point of closing arguments after 6 weeks of listening to everything. I listened to the entire trial. So then I'm saying 50 to 75%. They've proved their case, and this is before the defense's closing arguments, and I was waiting to hear the defense side. So I said I don't buy the motive. I think he snapped, likely after an altercation about drugs, money, or something. He snapped, so why are they trying to really shove this motive down our throats is how I felt. It was like, enough of this. Yeah. We know what he did. And I gave an anecdotal story last week. For those of you who watched, you can always replay it, about how I personally was wronged by a big attorney. Okay. So I don't like this. And that's probably one of the reasons I was really paying attention to this before the murder. The family annihilator thing, which he brought up, I'm like, why bring that up? What point did it serve? I don't know. But he would have killed Buster and probably killed himself too. I do believe he was suicidal. I do believe that. He did have real tears when he talked about that. So if you want to go back and look at that, you can argue with me. That's okay. I don't care. I really don't have to be right. I'm just saying what my impressions were as a person who was potentially a juror. If the trial excluded the money, is he still guilty? Again, I came at this innocent and proven guilty, even though that was hard for me. I think saying it didn't increase or the interest. Let me think. I think it was fairly humdrum regarding all this testimony about his motive, the financial stuff, as evidenced by jurors falling asleep. There are accounts of jurors falling asleep. It was a long trial. It went on too long. And that's another criticism I have. As a juror, if I was sitting there required to sit there in my seat, expose myself to COVID because nobody was required to wear masks, even after a COVID outbreak, I would be so angry and tired. Explaining all the evidence isn't what a closing should be. It's done during the trial. And I felt like they were and you mentioned this. Well, he went through all the evidence. That's not what they're supposed to do during the closing. They're supposed to tie it together. A good closing should reel the jury in. It should be compelling. It should reel them in, tie up all the knots. I didn't feel like it did that for me.
Okay.
And if the jury didn't come in thinking he was guilty like I did, that would maybe not even be the same. So let's just say, okay, so I have a question for you. So you thought he was guilty, right? Did you think he was guilty? Okay. So, and I do think he was responsible, which is different from saying he was guilty, okay, in this trial. Why? If I thought this was a slam dunk, he was guilty, I probably would have tuned this trial out several weeks ago and probably not even listened to the closing. So I ask you, what made it interesting to you if your mind was already made up and you're not there in the jury? Because I felt like it was a witch hunt personally, and I don't like that personally. Okay. It became kind of circus-like. So tell me, what were you looking to have your mind changed, or were you looking to have your mind confirmed?
I think I was just looking to learn because I've never watched a trial before. And this was fascinating to me because I started listening to the Murdaugh Murder podcast back in, it was just this last year. And I want to say it was like June because I listened to My Favorite Murder and they had the ladies on. So it had to have been during the summer. So that's when I got into it. And I started on episode 1 and that podcast sucked me in. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, we're going to trial. And I was like, I know everything about this, so that I think because I knew so much about it from that podcast, that it was just fascinating to me to put all the puzzle pieces together and see who the players were, and see what they would come up with, what for evidence when it came to this, and just see the whole trial process.
Okay.
And then once I
This is
started,
the
I just
first
got
time-
sucked into it.
This is the first time you watched a whole trial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
6
Okay.
freaking weeks.
Yeah, this was quite the weird one to start with. I'm telling you, it's not. Okay, so Pappy asked Kane what doubt he had, and Kane came back with the possibility of so many other people motivated to hurt that family or hurt him by hurting his family, and I can't deny that. I agree. Pappy asked if he was innocent. Why did he lie about being at the kennels? And I maintain that does not prove guilt. It does not look good. It's definitely, when you get to my notes, there's a percentage there that I apply to that on the other side, but that doesn't prove guilt. There's a lot of reasons people lie to the police because they don't trust them. Because police come into situations, even small, little, tiny situations, with their opinions already made up most of the time, and they don't hide it. So who knows? I'm not defending Alex Murdaugh, please. I'm afraid to say anything.
I heard an interesting statement today.
Sorry. By the way, on this channel here,
No.
Okay, we respect people who have differing opinions. We don't call them a troll. We don't call them an idiot. They just have a different opinion. And so that's what I like about our audience. And I just want to mention that. Go ahead, Katie.
Just one of the interesting comments I heard from the Attorney General today when he was making his rounds. You know, they talk about that circle, and they have those people in that circle, you know, of whether or not they're suspects or not, they're in that circle of the crime and who they were close to. And Alex was obviously in that circle because he's a spouse, he's a father, he was the one to find them. Like, of course he's in that circle. And what he said today is the Attorney General and sheepers, the people that were the crime scene experts and whatever, they were trying to get him out of the circle, but all the evidence that they had, nothing was able to remove him from that circle. And I thought that was interesting. Whether or not it's true.
It's interesting, but when you look at how crappy the investigation was, I mean, that's kind of weak to me, right?
SLED has to be so embarrassed. They have to be so embarrassed.
They're not.
I would hope
they're not. And we're supposed to trust them with Stephen Smith and all this other stuff too. Okay, sure.
No.
So the point is that works both ways.
And I don't think it was Buster in the Stephen Smith thing. I
have no idea.
I don't think it's Buster.
Yeah. Yes. Very difficult and relatable about what you shared earlier. Thank you, from Julia. Okay, let's go back into the comments before I keep going. Okay, so Kane mentioned, and this is interesting, his non-reaction to the verdict was puzzling. Now, I wonder too, he was a lawyer, he was a prosecutor. So he has his persona in court, which normally most of us wouldn't know about. But I think a lot of that too, I mean, the fact that the judge made him stand there for so long when his knees were probably buckling and he was probably ready, I thought that was absolutely cruel. I don't know if that's normal there, but I thought that was pretty weird that they didn't allow him to sit down. But because sometimes they don't even stand. Meg Banawa didn't even stand, which I thought was disrespectful too. I also hated that they didn't stand for the jury, that the court did not. They only stood for the judge. I do not. This whole thing opened up so much stuff about what goes on in the North Carolina courts. It just blew me away. And Kane says, yeah, he lied because he knew he was a top suspect. Of course, he said that from the beginning. And also, sure, drugs clouded his thinking. Of course. I mean, that's very easy to believe. So people lie. And it's really bad when you lie about something this important. And as Katie mentioned, Katie had lied for a while to get out of her situation, right? nobody is without lies. I mean, or small fibs,
Right.
big fibs, whatever. Lies are not good. They're not good, but they're not that uncommon.
Doesn't mean you're a murderer. Yeah.
Definitely. Exactly. And Pappy said Pappy agrees that the state's closing was weak and uninspiring. Didn't do what I thought it should be. And so Pappy says weak and uninspiring, mentioning why a closing should be compelling. It should increase interest, which is what I said earlier. Sure. It did not increase interest. It was pretty humdrum, as was the defense's, but it's so yeah. Okay. So and Pappy says masks do work. Oh, Pappy. Okay. Pappy. Kane thinks he was scared and distrustful. And Angela, hi. Nice to see you, Angela. And welcome everyone. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate you're here with us. And please chime in. You won't be attacked. I promise.
Yeah.
Well,
no.
I hope not, at least by me or Katie. I can't say what's going to happen in the comments, but we're trying. Ladies, Harpootlian created reasonable doubt, but then Alex's testimony showed his diabolical personality of hurting people. He lied about the one thing that could have helped them find the killer. That part, yes, he did lie about a very important thing. Whether that would have helped them find the killer or not, I think he's hiding stuff that could help uncover who might possibly be involved, and that is really making me upset. I agree with that. It's like, if he was responsible and if he conspired with other people to get this done, whether it was helping him with cleanup, whatever, maybe he has somebody clean up. I mean,
like his brother John Marvin, the fixer.
I do not understand. Yeah, but John Marvin was in someplace else, just like you said, Buster was, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I think John Marvin might have, but post that night, possibly have, but not that night.
Yeah.
And Too Deep, it's so good to see you. So yeah, so I am sad that the mystery is, I hope that this, as with so many trials, we don't ever really know the whole truth. Not even close. And I do think that's partly the prosecution's fault because of the way they went at this and bludgeoned him. And they could have had an opportunity to maybe find out what really happened, but I don't think they want to know. And that makes me suspicious too. So Julia, I think most of us will never understand why people kill. True. Very, very true.
I hope so.
Right. Pappy, I don't trust police, but when you think about being at a murder scene, you instantly be judged as a liar, and chances are you'll get away from it are very small, for sure. Very unlikely you're going to get away with murder these days. With those Apple experts throwing those phones away. Sorry. Well, okay, South Carolina, you really did a great job there. Okay. Hi, lady. Sibylline is here. Hello. Kane says, the prosecution says he did it, but they weren't there. And it seems wrong to convict based on a belief. Yeah, and take it to a grand jury based on just that and false information. That really bothers me. Can you tell? Kane, but it seems to be how our system works, right? And we should be watching, because it could be somebody we love or ourselves.
Yeah.
Obviously he did it. Okay. I again say he's responsible for sure. I don't know how he pulled this. I just don't see how it all came together. And I think they didn't show us enough about that. And Lady Cymbeline brings up that it's possibly a mercy killing. Alec was losing influence, about to find out more about debts and addiction. Maggie and Paul's lives about to be changed. And and this is just, of course, we're just having human conversation, speculation, and that's okay. I mean, I was thinking maybe Paul and Maggie confronted him about his pills. I think I mentioned to Katie, maybe Paul had put his pills in his pocket, and that's why he went for his pocket after he
for his phone.
He shot him and he didn't kill him, and he on all these drugs and he fell over. He was probably crying. I don't think he would have wanted to kill his loved ones. He definitely had a close family relationship with them. He could have fallen over and then realized he wasn't dead. That's why he was on the ground. And then went after Maggie. Maybe Maggie had the rifle and was coming after him, and that's how the two weapons. I mean, there's so many things that could have happened, but we don't know any of those things because they weren't proven. But the idea that we're all trying to fill in the blanks is what led me to be like, not reasonable doubt was proven. It was not proven. But the fact that I would speculate, because I don't tend to speculate like that, the fact that I'm sitting here still saying it just doesn't make sense is, and I don't know what I would do in the jury room. Would I have been able to be convinced, like held my ground to the pressure of the judge to not hang the jury? I don't know. Sounds like it was pretty easy to convince those three.
45 minutes, Dawn.
I think it would have taken me a little longer to be convinced, but I'm sure, like I said, I would have been the most hated person on the jury. I've been like, what about this? Law enforcement is very difficult work. Of course it is. When the public expects flawlessness, that puzzles me. SLED had to find puzzle pieces over a vast area that night and overcome the disbelief that a lawyer did this. Yeah, well, they didn't have to finish that night. They could have stayed there the next day and not left the scene. And observation says it's obvious Alex did it. Came, and why was Buster spared? Yeah, that's one of the questions I have. It's weird. Angela says, hey, Lady C. And Pappy, Buster was... I am not going to read that. Pappy. He makes a delicious hamburger. Okay. Gotta love it. I love it. Gotta have some giggles in here. I mean, gosh. Buster was self-supporting. Yep. Maggie and Paul were largely dependent on Alex for their lifestyles. Although Buster, I don't know how self-supporting he was either. He was kicked out of law school and working for like some, yeah. Was he making hamburgers? I think he was. He was working for one of those chain restaurants. I'm guessing that's what he was doing. That's what Pappy's saying.
Oh, he was?
Oh, yeah. He was kicked out of law school. He wasn't.
Oh, yeah. I know what she's saying. Yeah.
Okay. Kane, the demeanor in the video was carefree with three of them joking. How can you go from that to seconds later, Alex killing him? Yeah, that is very, as a human being, I have a heart. Yeah, it's, and there.
Something had to have been, I wonder if something was said,
That's what I'm thinking. That's why I'm like, they confronted him. There was something he snapped, but that again goes to, his mental state, which they didn't argue. All right. Yep. And Lady Cymbeline says the forensic timeline was damning. Yep. Yeah. What was he hiding there? That was weird. I have some ideas about that too, but I'm not going to say them. I read online when Alex's accounts were frozen, Buster didn't have any money for bills or food. Yeah, he's living with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's mother, evidently. Angela's never had a bad experience with the police. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah, right?
That's great. You got yelled at for not hearing a siren. Actually had that happen too. I was having a good time listening to music and theory. Yes, I actually had that same experience, exact same experience. And he was actually really mean to me, and I yelled back, and I got out of the ticket because I said, "You're harassing me," because he was just so over the top. I'm like, just give me the speeding ticket and spare me yelling at me. You don't get to yell at me. You can write me a ticket. I was speeding. You don't get to abuse me. Like, people don't try that with me. It's not. He was the server at Buffalo Wild Wings. That's what it was. Thank you, Robert. And now he's a millionaire. Yeah. He probably always was. Where did all that money go? How did he spend all that money on drugs? Now, somebody said Matthew Perry wrote a book about his drug abuse and he was millions into it too. It's just, it's a lot of money for.
I don't think it was just, if it was the drugs, I don't think it's just opioids. I'll say that.
Right.
But who knows?
All right. Maggie's estate went to the Beach family. Yes.
Yeah, but they were kind enough and let Buster keep $500,000 from Maggie's estate.
The Beach family was?
That was part of their settlement.
Very nice. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lady says maybe Buster was going to get his comeuppance from Alex eventually. I think truly Alec brought the local police would send sympathies and turn a blind eye to Maggie and Paul's deaths. Maybe. What was I going to say? There was something that Alex said, which I thought was very telling. And he said, I should have been a better father to Paul and been more disciplined and provided more discipline, which is a true statement. Okay. So that was basically, also, I want to say on the prosecution side, I'm giving them a huge, huge deduction for Metters talking and thrashing during the defense's closing and just his general presence in general. That man, that attorney on the prosecution side drove me bananas, much like Chad Daybell's attorney, no doubt, has and will. If he's still on the
Don't listen to the rebuttal then.
No, I'm not going to. I don't need to. I'm not going to. That guy. And that's the thing. That counts in a jury room. If a lawyer turns you off, you know, your personality, very personality can lose you a case.
Well, and I think a lot of that also had to do with Harpootlian. I think he turned the jury off.
He did. I don't think Harpootlian was great either, but yeah, that bumbling was an act, though. It was kind of like that. Yeah, but no, I just, you don't get into people's personal space like that.
No, that was weird.
I did not enjoy Harpootlian's presentation either. I agree, but it wasn't to the same level where I won't even listen to Metter's rebuttal.
That's fair. If
you're a juror and you tune somebody out, like, that's important stuff.
Yeah.
So I just was like, I'm going to do, plus I ran out of time, so I couldn't get ready for this live stream. Okay. So on the defense's arguments, closing arguments, here's my notes. First of all, I'm just going to remind everybody I fell asleep during them. So I had to listen over 2 times. You know, I was just trying to be fair and take notes. And I didn't get to my percentages yet. So you guys can help me with this. So again, he came out right away saying presumed innocent is an unnatural task. We tend to believe the police. We tend to believe the government. We tend to believe when somebody says somebody's a murderer, that's something we take seriously as humans. And so it is unnatural to think somebody is innocent until proving it's not easy to do. And I acknowledge that. And that's true. And there's a lot of people out there. I don't think people who are saying that the prosecution didn't do what they should have done are saying that they think Alex necessarily is innocent. Those are not the same two statements. I just want to remind everyone that. And a lot of them are lawyers and defense lawyers, and so they kind of know what they're talking about. He did acknowledge the amount of prejudice and publicity that the Murdaugh family would have had to. I mean, I know, Katie, here's another thing we talked about during the trial, and folks in the chat, please help us with this, what you think. Katie came into this thinking the Murdaugh family was revered and respected and loved. And I said, I don't buy that. I think there were probably already, but prior to all of the things that were made public, that they probably rubbed many people the wrong way throughout the centuries, especially the last couple decades, with Alex being the part-time prosecutor, including evidence that he had the blue lights in his car and that kind of thing. People see those kinds of things. They don't like it. So, Chad, do you think Alex Murdaugh was loved up until this point, up until a year ago, or was that family already their reputation and was already damaged? And by the way, the boat crash didn't help that. And Maggie didn't even want to go into Hampton because she was being shunned. So I don't agree that they were revered and then suddenly boom. I think that over time it's been an undoing of their reputations over the decades, like normally happens with power, then starts abuse, and then starts the reputation. What do you think, Katie, on that?
I can agree with that, especially after the boat case. I would agree with that. Yeah. But prior to that, I think like I would see random stories of Alec getting somebody out of a speeding ticket just because then he has the power over them, and now all of a sudden you feel like you owe him a favor, and like I don't know. I still think that the power had a lot to do with it, but like you said, I don't think that the love was there so much as the power was there. Like you wanted to still be kind to them because like you might hate your boss at work, but you still got to be nice to them because they can get you stuff.
And you go to their parties if they put a party on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's right.
Fake it till you make it. So I don't know.
Right. And Pappy is saying, yeah, I think Alec was very much disliked for a very, very long time. Angela says feared and revered from various groups. Yeah, and with generate, it's kind of like, the fall of Rome. Like it all starts out grand and great, but over the years it starts chipping away, and then we end up with what we have this week with Alex. Not just this week, but it didn't happen overnight. He even said he had a drug problem for over a decade, right? I'm sure people knew.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Alex's dad and his granddad might have had that kind of power, but yeah, it was already crumbling is my point. So I'm not going to say that they enjoyed the advantage of the police wanting to cover up for them either. I think it was just so many missed opportunities there. Okay.
Well, did you see after that boat case where the first cop that showed up on scene, I think it was Connor, he's like, yeah, well, it was Murdaugh, so good luck.
Good luck. Exactly. So I don't think they were loved and revered is my point.
No, but I think what he's saying there is you're never going to get anything out of this.
Oh, yeah. But
good
that's
luck
not
trying to prosecute or do anything with this because
no,
that could have been the same with the murders. Like the second that they heard, oh, it was Alex Murdaugh in the murders, like, good luck. Why even bother trying? Good luck.
Well, the police didn't say that. It was the kid who said that.
The other people. Correct.
Right.
Correct.
That's a little different.
That is different. You're right.
Yeah. So we're talking about the opinions that the public had about them.
Yeah.
So were they out there to get them or not? And would Alex have known that and been concerned? Reasonable to think he would. Okay. Yeah. So, and then he in the closing again. We're going through the closing notes, but we roam around. It's okay.
We're kind of a little bit like Griffin's closing. We just go here and there and everywhere.
Well, what I heard that before, and I was trying not to listen to anybody. I did hear that, and I was like, okay, that's why I took notes. But he also mentioned the limitations of what I wrote in my notes, the limitations of a defense compared to the limitless power of the state. And then he mentioned Blackstone's ratio. It's better that 10 guilty persons escape than 1 innocent suffer. And one of the things that I always had in mind during this trial is he's going to prison for the rest of his life anyway. So which way does that affect a juror? Like, should we just go ahead and convict him then? Because he's going to prison anyway? It will affect his life in prison, okay, to have a murder of a family as opposed to financial crimes. Okay,
so I do have a question about that.
I think it's really important not to just, he's going to, to life in prison anyway. Let's just convict him or let's not convict him either way. Okay, so that was something that concerned me too. Then I think it should have been like fully brought out to the light more for jurors to understand, because that could be something they're not even thinking they're thinking. What was your, yeah, okay.
So he got convicted in state of a murder. So he's going to go to a state prison and it's going to be a maximum security because of the murder. What happens when he goes, and if he gets convicted federally for the financial crimes? Will he stay in state, or does the federal charges trump the state, and then he'll go to...
It depends on the plea. We'll find out. We don't know. We don't know that right now, but it depends on the plea and all of that. Yeah, because he's pleading on those. So he might be pleading, and including in that is, I get to go to a federal prison.
Okay.
So what I got from Griffin's closing was basically the entire closing, although it wasn't done in a really organized way. Like, basically it did. If I listened to it, because I really wanted to, it basically was all of the missed opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Tire impressions weren't taken. No examination of the hair in Maggie's hands. He didn't mention it, but no examination of the DNA under her fingernails, like hair in her hand and male DNA under her fingernails. Initially, when it was just the fingernails, I'm like, well, yeah, she just had her nails done. But they could have checked who did her nails. Was it a man or not? Usually it's not, but it could have been. And what would he mind giving his DNA sample? He might not have wanted to, but it could have been checked. It wasn't. No fingerprinting inside of the, come on. A double murder? Footwear impressions, none. DNA on victims' clothing, none. This whole business of we found Alex's DNA on his own clothing. What is that? You're going to find my DNA on my clothing. What is that? That is just, I'm sorry. Boom. Like, come on. Just come on. What was that?
They did say that the fingerprints on the phones, they did compare fingerprints on the phones, and it came back as everybody you would expect, family members.
Of course.
There weren't any outside. And but the same with the DNA. Like, they found Paul and Maggie's DNA on Alex's shirt and on his clothes, which would be expected because my DNA is going to be on my husband's clothes. You know, my kid's DNA is going to be on my clothes.
I'm probably going to wear gloves, but okay. They still should have
checked. And the fingerprints
that.
In the feed room, you're not wrong. They did not do a good job. But nobody else could have been in the feed room with Paul at the time because it's such a small area.
Maybe beforehand, though, preparing. We don't know. You check those things. You don't in hindsight say, oh, well, nobody could have been in there, because they didn't know that at the time. At the time. So you don't justify not checking for printer because of what you now know.
You're not wrong. Okay. You're not wrong. They did not do a good job.
This is what, okay. I don't know if he mentioned this or if I wrote this down, but I wrote down in my notes possibly that Alex was the target. The fact that as a juror I would be like, well, it could have been this, it could have been that. That's why it's not reasonable doubt has not been met in my mind. That's all I'm saying. Maggie's phone, whoever killed her threw it away. He contended that, which I thought was a strong statement. Whoever killed Maggie threw her phone away. All right. Now he wanted to say that with confidence because of the OnStar data saying that it couldn't have been Alex who did that and all the other information, but he did say that, which I thought was a little risky. Alex Carr did not travel with Maggie's phone, is what he contended. These are just my notes.
Yep.
This is not me saying it. Okay.
No.
It was laughable. Absolutely laughable. I mean, this many things wrong with an investigation makes me think somebody's being framed. I'm just going to tell you this. It was laughable that they faxed a subpoena to GM or whoever to OnStar, a faxed subpoena that was never followed up on. Okay, sure. I want to go to prison with that kind of information, like with that kind of an investigation, no, thank you. No, thank you. I know the guy did a lot of things wrong and he was probably involved, but you don't do an investigation. You don't need to take somebody to trial with this kind of. Okay. The victims' GPSs were not extracted from their phones. Phones were not stored in a Faraday bag. That's customary. This whole nonsense FBI reenactment was laughable. He brought up the possibility of fabricated evidence. Okay, that is a big contention. That is a huge contention.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
And he even said so. He acknowledged. He said, "I don't say that lightly. I was once a prosecutor. I know what it means."
I talked to a couple people, and they said that they always say that.
What?
Yes.
No, they don't. No,
I talked to a couple people. Well, I heard on Lawyer, because he mentioned the fabricated evidence, and he said defense lawyers always say that because they have to put doubt.
Well, I purposely didn't listen to any commentary. This is just me and my opinions because I don't want to, because a lot of people, you say anything that disagrees with them, they're like, "Oh, you're just listening to the talking heads." And I do listen to them, but I make my opinion and then I go. The T-shirt blood splatter. And that came out before the trial. That's when I started to turn it like, what is going on here? That whole business about, but there was blood splatter. I remember you saying that to me because if your podcast that, I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, no. Something about an email. Oh, they were emailed that there was no blood. That was kind of laughable too. You don't send something like that in an email. That's important evidence. Come on. I don't want to go to prison for life based on something like that. This whole
not for an email
from the beginning, and I'm glad he brought it up in the closing because the beginning was like 600 years ago. But do you remember when the young girl who was the true crime expert who became who got a job in criminal, it was like the very first witness, and she went on and on about his shirt smelling so clean. Yes, she looked so clean. Not smelling, looking so clean.
It smelled.
There was video of him before he got in the car to be questioned with her in the car and the other guy, of him sweating like a pig, taking that shirt, wiping his face with it. That is your idea of clean? Like, lady, you need to look at your idea of clean. That was not a clean shirt. And if it smelled like laundry detergent, they must have been using some strong laundry detergent because that was not a clean shirt. I saw that shirt. No way. And then the fact that they said when it went into the lab, it smelled like laundry. It's like, well, there are some really strong laundry detergents out there that might overpower all that sweat, but whoa. I am going to just say this didn't have anything to, it was with closing. He brought up Blanca. When Blanca was on the stand for the prosecution, I was like, yeah, she's believable. But there were a couple times where I was like, For example, well, they always leave the pots out and they were in the refrigerator. It's like, you're trying too hard. You're reaching. I don't like it when I see a witness reaching. And sure enough, that was disputed, and which is dumb for her to even have said it. Because,
well, it wasn't disputed.
John Marvin said they put it was either John Marvin or somebody else. It wasn't John Marvin. It was somebody else said, they went in there and they started putting the pots and stuff away in the refrigerator.
Yeah. So it did happen like that.
What was disputed is that she thought it was weird and thought that she shouldn't have said that.
Yes.
I think she was just saying it brought doubt up when it was just speculation. We can speculate. We're in the peanut gallery. You're a witness in a murder trial. You better not be speculating like that.
I think she was just saying that when she walked through that morning.
And let me finish.
Go ahead.
And
sorry.
I'll let you.
I'm sorry.
Because I will lose my mind. And they could have been lying just because of what she said. So what I'm saying is she opens it up. You don't want a witness. You don't want to bring out evidence that somebody can easily slap down. So again, this reflects poorly on the prosecution for asking the question, for allowing that to go on. Whether she just volunteered it, I'd have to replay it, but that was my point. So you see where I'm going?
Got it.
Okay.
Yep.
It's not whether she told the truth, whether they could have been lying. Well, we put the pots away. Who knows? I don't doubt that they that somebody would clean up. That's the first thing I do when I'm at a tragic play. Somebody died, somebody's hurt. I go do the dishes for them. Like, that's what I do. Like, it's something we do.
And only a man would have put pots and pans in the fridge.
Well, evidently that was Maggie, and that was their custom. Oh, you mean that? No, that was their custom. They just put, but yes, just put the pots in the fridge. Okay, the whole blue raincoat tarp thing. Again, why did you bring?
Yeah, I still am stuck on that one.
Made a big deal out of that, though. That showed me, okay, show me your weaknesses right there between Blanca and Shelley and the pots and it was like, what are we reaching for here? This is a murder trial. Could have been the death penalty. It could have been. They only decided it wasn't going to be the death penalty till a couple of days ago. Did you know that?
No, they went into it saying it was not going to be the death penalty.
Well,
it was because it's circumstantial evidence.
Yes, in weak circumstantial, but it's always circumstantial. So that's not the reasons. They didn't fully decide until a couple of days ago. Okay. SLED false information to John Marvin about the coat. Oh, we have a coat. Why did SLED lie to John Marvin?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, cops do lie to try and get somebody to say something.
They can lie when they're in the interrogation room and they're trying to get a confession.
Okay.
They lied to his brother. So that whole bait and switch with Shelley on the blue, whatever. And then let's get to the ammo. And these are just notes from the closing, okay? Because I never would have done this on my own. The ammo, buckshot, duck shot, 4 loaded shotguns with buck and bird shot was given to the grand jury. Right there. Even if I thought he was guilty, I'd be like, I'm not doing guilty here. You don't lie to the grand jury. Whether it was a lie or false information, they never corrected it. The motive was dumb, 0%. I did put a percent there. Because I was 0 to 25% going in on the prosecution. But then by the time I was like, it's dumb, I'm 0%. So that put me on the lower range of that they proved the case to beyond a reasonable doubt. The Bubba video, and then 4 minutes later, oops, I don't remember what that was. Paul, oops on Alex's part. 4 minutes later, about the Bubba video. That was huge. That was a big oops. That was a big oops. I do not agree that just because the phone stopped moving, you're automatically dead. Okay? My phone hasn't moved for an hour now. I'm not dead. Okay? That one, I do agree that the time of death was sometime close to that, but we don't have a time of death again. So I just don't like the idea. Now, let me just say it this way. I don't like the idea of being told something is a certainty when it's not. Sure. And I think a lot of people are buying this certainty on some of this stuff when it's far from certain. And if you're on a jury, sure, I hope you are really careful about this kind of thing. The close family relationship, the whole motive thing. And I think Jim was saying Griffey, I call him Griffey. Why? I remember that. And he said something else that was kind of funny where he repeated it over and over. And I think he seemed really tired and lethargic. But it did seem hard to believe that motive. The whole storm thing seemed a little bit too theatrical. They didn't bring that home. And he mentioned it. The reason for me personally, the motive was weird is because it didn't really show there's a reason to do it. And if anything, it just brought the highlight on him. Like if he did it intentionally, I do not disagree. He might've snapped, but that's not what they were saying. He was suicidal. I believe that at the crescendo later on. And he might have been suicidal because he killed them or he was responsible for killing them. I don't deny that, but you can't also not say that he wasn't super regretful and suicidal. Yeah. He said he felt like they were better off with him dead, then he'd get the insurance money, and that makes sense, just like what you said. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Some things are believable and some things are just like, The the whole tool marks on the bullets is not super reliable, and they didn't prove it. The prosecution, he mentioned more likely 2 shooters. I went in thinking that. It's like, everyone's like, well, of course he used 2 weapons. He's trying to get by with it. It's like, yeah, you try doing that in that amount of time, and then cleaning it all up. 0 evidence. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Of course he would. If he had 5 hours, he didn't have a lot of time. This whole new theory about the Paul confronting drug dealers. Again, it's just the fact that we can have so many possibilities, that means they didn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt to me.
Sure.
Yeah, a lot of other things, that Alex was not at Alameda when Shelley said he was. The thing about the tarp being laid out, she said one thing, the other housekeeper said another. So again, they put on a lot of stupid circumstantial evidence that didn't mean much, but they tried to make it into something, and it was disproven. And so because of that, it makes me not trust the prosecutors for putting on that false stuff. So, and it kind of just goes on and on. Okay. Now I agree that, that Griffin, it was a little sleepy. I bet he was exhausted. I bet everyone there was exhausted, and just wanted it to be done. But I can't see myself going into that. I mean, I'm just refreshed to know that at least 2 people said not guilty, which is interesting. And 1 person said they couldn't decide. That was refreshing.
Sure. Yeah.
I didn't think they should have gone in guilty in there, which it seemed like with 2 and 15 minutes. It's like, oh, they were all just guilty. We want to go home for the weekend. We're done, which is sad.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a lot of comments. So what do you think about my notes?
I think they're great, and I understand where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. I was getting my nails done while I was trying to listen to Griffin, and I had it on 2 times speed, and I still tuned him out because he was bad.
I don't think he was bad. He was just slow.
Boring. Yes, slow and boring.
He wasn't annoying, though. I will take boring over annoying any day of the week, personally, because you can put him on 2.5 or whatever. 1.5 or 2.
Okay. He just talks so slow.
Julie says their press conference was awful. Harpootlian's part. Did not see the press conference. I was trying to pretend like I was on the jury, so I was trying to stay in the moment. So I'm like a day behind you guys. So thanks for putting up with me. I hope you all appreciate just the spirit of coming at this as a more of an intellectual exercise as opposed to a witch hunt, which is, I think, even on trials that I am really personally invested in, emotionally, I should say. And a lot of people are like, why do you people care? These people don't, they're not in your lives. Well, we care. I mean, I think it's important to care as a society how these things go down.
Yeah.
And Kane said, yeah, he really needed a razor sharp attorneys. And maybe he was just probably comfortable with them, or maybe he couldn't find attorneys to represent him after all of the things he did as an attorney to get disbarred first. So he did.
I have a question.
Yes.
They already said that, they're going to submit for appeals. And 9 times out of 10 with appeals, you see incompetent lawyering. That's not the right word.
But they're not going to. They're not. Yeah, ineffective assistance of counsel.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. No. They weren't that bad. Come on.
I thought for sure he would do that and switch lawyers and hopefully get some appeals done. Okay, so you don't think it's going to happen?
Oh, I don't think so. No, that would never fly. These are 2 really good attorneys.
Okay.
They might not be to your personal taste and liking, and some of it's cultural, I believe. I mean, we're not used to South Carolina attorneys, and the whole slowness and the slowness of it, and the way the court was run. It's very different for us from different parts of the country.
Yeah.
Angela says wasn't interested and then became glued to the case, and she had an open mind until she heard Miss Shelley and Blanca, and those were ones that I was like, oh, what is going on here? That's interesting. So tell us, Angela, what about Miss Shelley and Blanca was important to you and why? And I'm not sure exactly, so I'm just going to put it that way. Tell us more. And Kane says, yeah, Maggie had to grocery shop in another town because people didn't like her there. Mm-hmm. And Pappy says that Alex was disliked for a long time. Oh, I'm way behind on comments. Sorry, you guys. I'm coming. I'm going from the top down. I don't like it when content creators go from the bottom up because then it's so confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Angela said feared and revered. Lady Cymbeline says she was thinking about the shooter theory. Too many slips. Yeah. He was definitely a lawyer. He was a Bill Clinton. He reminded me so much of Bill Clinton on the stand, which was, yeah, let's not argue. Yeah. But that's what you would expect from a lawyer. And that's why you don't want lawyers to either be on juries or on the stand ever.
Yeah.
If you know enough lawyers in your personal life, it's not as bad as maybe you would think. It's just how they are trained to think and speak. Yeah, because everything's tactical and you don't want to misspeak and everything's, well, I didn't say that, I said this, and yeah. And Katie Griffin's closing was so sad. Yeah, it was sad, and he cried at the end. He did. So come on, people, let's have some compassion. These are people he cared about, and he cares about Alex.
He does.
It's very sad. Can you imagine? Being friends for life, lawyer partners for life, not partners, but in the general sense. And then all of a sudden his wife and kid who you care about are dead and you are like having to defend him. And maybe nobody else would defend him, although I don't know. I think he went with them because he was comfortable with them, but because he could say anything to them and not worry about it, coming back to bite him. I have empathy for Griffin for sure. He seems like a sweetie, but he also seems like he could be a little shady too. I see both sides. The lead detective giving false information. We were not going to say lying, but for the prosecution to not go back to the grand jury and get a new indictment corrected, or how there's a terminology for that, they could have done it and they didn't bother. That showed me arrogance on their side, overconfidence, coupled with all of these holes in the investigation, which the prosecution is responsible for. That to me looks like somebody is out for somebody else. Also, just let's talk about Creighton's personal vendetta against Murdaugh. I mean, I didn't like the feel of that. I did not like the feel of that, even though he probably deserved it in a lot of ways. You don't deserve that. Like, you shouldn't go there. You have a responsibility to stay somewhat objective and professional. Pappy bringing the chuckles. We love you. Okay, Angela, Maggie's blood on steering wheel. Alex wearing clean clothes. He showered it off. Why didn't they check the drains? Were they trying to protect Alex? I don't believe that either. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. A shoddy investigation.
Go back and check the septic tank.
A shoddy investigation generally can often mean that it's because they don't have to bother because they already have their killer. And that is not a good thing. They still need to investigate.
Yeah.
If they had done a better job investigating, it might not have even gone to trial. Think about that. We could have our 6 weeks back. We could have our 6 weeks of life back. And that makes me mad. I'm getting worked up. I need a diet A&W. That sounds good. I love root beer. Root beer and ginger beer sodas are great.
I got my Diet Mountain Dew here.
Nice. Mountain Dew is good too. The evidence that could prove Maggie's phone was not with Alex somehow deleted. Julie's also asking, what about Shelly and Blanca? He didn't lie about random stuff. It was all about the time of death. I'm not sure I understand this question. Do you understand this question? What about Shelly and Blanca? What about Shelly and Blanca?
Yeah. What about what Angela said about them?
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Shirley and Blanca important to her?
And then also, he didn't lie about random stuff. He was all about the time of death. Okay, right. In other words, the kennel, not being at the kennel because of it being so close to the time of death.
Mm-hmm.
It's a biggie. I don't deny that. That's a real bad mark. But when you have to, for me personally, I'd be weighing all these other things, and that was like 100% on the G side, on the guilt side, or close and like close enough to kill. But I don't also maybe 90%, because I also believe people would lie if they thought they were getting framed.
Yeah,
maybe he was framed by law enforcement. Ever think of that? That's never happened in this country. Never. I think it's important to be have a critical eye again.
These comments are great. Sorry.
John Marvin. Oh, did you get that video I sent you of John Marvin and what's his other Randy going on Good Morning America, bawling their eyes out last year?
Mm-hmm.
It was like, boy, these boys know how to cry. This family.
Right.
I don't cry like that. I mean, I'm so stoic. You know, that seemed a little over the top, let's just say, to me too.
Yeah.
Pappy asks, Angela, do you not have Chianti? And
I don't know what that is.
Fava beans. Chianti wine?
Yeah.
Italian red wine.
Okay. And what's fava? Because I've been hearing about that lately.
Fava beans are a large, really kind of buttery, nice bean. I'm not sure what the connection is.
Because I think you can make a drink out of it, but I don't know what that is. Anyway.
Fava beans?
Yeah.
Oh, you can make alcohol out of any bean. Maybe they do it in prison. I don't know what that is. Tell us what we need to know about fava beans and Chianti. Miss Shelley. Okay, Angela's answering. Thank you, Angela. Thank you so much. Miss Shelley and Blanca love that family. Yes. And on the stand, they felt torn up about having to speak the truth against Alex. Yes, I agree. He pressured them to lie about the timeline. Shelley was crying. That's true.
They were very credible witnesses.
That's
because
true.
of their love for the family, and it appeared that they did not want to be there.
That is true. I don't deny that. Yeah. However, Shelley and the other housekeeper had conflicting information about the tarp, and Blanca was throwing. I think maybe Blanca initially didn't want to testify against Alex, but she even admitted on the stand that there was a point where she moved out of Moselle because she kind of changed her mind against Alex. And it did show, and I'm just saying that there were a few things that the prosecutions brought out of her that really were meaningless and just showed her bias at that point. She may have started out the other way, but she wasn't when she was on the stand. So I'm going to say,
and her and Buster have something that they don't.
100% credible, but more like, 75 on that, because she went to 100 from me and then went down a little bit if you look critically. Yeah. And then Angela also says Blanca's testimony about Alex's clothing. She never saw that outfit and shoes again. I'm not sure that's what she said, but she did say, yeah, there could have been khaki pants and a blue shirt, and that she washed them. So I'm not sure she said what you're saying she said, but I could be wrong. But I don't think she said that personally. Yes, I know she folds and puts away their clothes, but she also might not remember. I think she said she didn't remember exactly if it was the same outfit. So that's weak. That's just not enough for me. In other words, I don't put, if it's weak, or if it's like, what did she or didn't she? And she said she didn't, then I'm not even going to put it in the column. I'm not even going to write it down, because it's like, nope, for me. Okay. And I think they just also overwhelmed as a juror, as a potential juror. I'd be like, what are we even talking about anymore? It was just too much. Maggie's nightgown were laid out. Maggie doesn't wear.
That was weird. I still don't understand. I don't understand that. I'm still lost on that one.
Yeah. Maybe she was going to wear them that night because she didn't want to, That's pretty
No,
personal.
she never
Like,
would.
how does she know that? Excuse me.
All right.
I mean, yeah, it could be staged, but it could also be like, I think if she said they were laid out and she never laid them out, never laid out her pajamas, that'd be different.
Sure.
It sounds like she did lay out her pajamas. She threw some panties on there. I mean, I might be inclined one way or the other on that topic, which is a little too personal for me. But to that one doesn't mean anything to me. It means nothing. It means nothing. Blanca said it. Yes, she said it. Yeah. Yes. There's circumstantial evidence, and then there's strong circumstantial evidence, and there's weak circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is important. So I don't discount anything. I don't say, oh, it's just circumstantial. Every murder case primarily is circumstantial evidence. So that means nothing. The strength of the circumstantial evidence is what is. I have no reason. I have no skin in this game to defend or anything. I'm just saying, to me, I didn't have time to put any percentages. I will go back and see if I can put some percentages on motive, means, and opportunity based on that closing. But I literally just finished the closing before we went live. So I didn't get to put percentages on there. But you can tell the way I listed that all out. When you list it all like that, that circumstantial evidence starts wearing down at it.
It's so funny because I feel like there was the strength of circumstantial evidence when it came to the timeline. I think that's the biggest thing, is because there's, I don't know. The timeline is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and then they said, to have more than a timeline, don't you?
Well, Mark Ball was able to put the golf cart at the scene of the crime, and as we heard multiple times, they rode around the property with two guns, always a shotgun and the .300 blackout. Not always, but they had those two guns with them almost always. And so then on the golf cart when they're riding around, so now the golf cart's down at the property with the guns. And then just, there's no way Alec could have, even if he was like, I don't know. There's no way Alec wasn't involved based on the timeline. And why in God's name was his phone off until 9:02? And then all of a sudden at 9:02 it comes on, when he's known to have his phone on him all the time.
Yeah, that looks
and
really
even
bad.
if it's terrible reception, he still always has his phone on him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's the timeline that sealed the deal for me.
Yeah. Well, it did for me. It does for me. But again, there's just so many holes in that prosecution that they just seem a little suspicious to me. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
Okay, Angela says, my housekeeper knew more about my habits than I realized. Anticipated my outfits, what I wanted for dinner, holiday decor, the perfume I wore.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and I believe that.
Yeah.
They know the way, and she says, believe it. And that is from the Dan Markel trial. I love it. Believe it. We believe it. We do believe you. I love it. Yes. Good point. Good point. I agree. Yeah. I agree. But again, that's part of the building blocks of the case for sure. The circumstantial evidence. Yeah. I have no reason to dispute that one. Maybe I just didn't want to hear about it. I'm like, yeah, that's so private. But I will say that by the time Blanca got on the stand, she was no longer neutral.
Sure.
So I don't believe everything when somebody's completely on either side, you know. And she says when she lived overseas, she had a housekeeper and she was good, drew a bath, put a rose petal on top of the water and lit the candles. Oh, nice. And Pappy says, it sounds like a Hallmark movie and I love it. I do too. Yeah. All right. Well, we've been live for, hour and 39 minutes. We were going to quick talk. Did we talk about the other two? So we talked about Daybell. We talked about Charlie Adelson.
Yep.
Right?
We did not talk about Charlie Adelson.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so should we quick review? I want to. Do you have time to go through an article? It's a nice summary. Of course, we watch Judy and James's review, but let me just pull this article up, and I'll put it up on the, because it brought out a couple neat points that are that Judy and James brought out too, but since I don't. All right, so let's bring this one up. Okay. All right, and this is an article from Florida Politics, and this is by Peter Gorsh. But I like their writing. I listen, I read I have a subscription to the Tallahassee Democrat just because of this trial, but I like these articles. So it says obviously the trial was delayed. The judge did allow for a delay. So if you weren't watching and you weren't, I'm just kind of remembering myself right now. They asked for a delay. They asked for a couple of months, but the prosecution said, well, we can't do a couple of months because we have other trials already on the books. So now it's looking more like fall, which annoys me because it might be October, and I was planning to travel in October if I'm well enough. So that makes me mad because I can't be traveling when this is going on. I just can't. But I might be able to anyways with my health. So I'm hoping my situation is better by then, but it might not be. So who knows? But anyway, the prosecution did fight that. They said, no, they wanted this date. They wanted a speedy trial. We prepared. We're ready. No. And the judge said, well, we have to be reasonable and we'll give them a couple months, but then they got into that. So we don't know what the date is going to be or if anything else is going to be changed as a result. But we're looking at maybe October now for Charlie's trial if it happens, because also discussed was Katie's proffer. Now 3 proffers, whatever that means. In fact, they've already arranged for Luis to get to Tallahassee in April. So they've already been making all kinds of arrangements for this to happen. But so Daniel Rashbaum is Charlie Adelson's attorney, and he's saying, especially with these proffers, even though they really don't have anything to do with my client, which is interesting. He said that I still need time to go through all of this new evidence. He's saying, and it's reasonable to believe that they don't need the proffers for Charlie. And then there was the question about whether the proffers would be released to the public prior to the trial or not. And the judge looks like he's inclined to say, nope, they're going to hold on to those until after the trial. Now, why would Rashbaum, if what we think is true and what he's saying is true, that proffers don't really implicate his client, Charles Adelson, why would Rashbaum want them sealed for a fair trial? Is he doing the bidding of the Adelson family to keep him sealed because the bad publicity for Wendi, Donna, and Harvey? And that seems like the case. I mean, but who knows? There's a lot of bait and switch going on. So Robert Willer is the judge, who we like. He's got those snappy glasses that open in the middle and snap. You know what I'm talking about? We just love
Stop it.
Snap. Yeah, he's so fun. He's a sweetie. He seems fair. We know Charlie is still locked up in Leon County, which is where the Tallahassee prison county jail is. And he's just saying, it's a massive amount of evidence before them, which is good to know. Good to know, right?
That is good to know.
Good to know. And she did, And Sarah Dugan argued, not
Georgia.
Thank you. Just was like, I could see it and I couldn't read. Yes, Georgia was there, but she was listening, and then there was another prosecutor who was at the table. So Georgia was not the one doing the argument. So here's a little bit more about Rashbaum. So Rashbaum had represented Donna and Harvey Adelson, Charlie's parents, for 6 years. and during that time, he was the one who penned the fanciful fiction letter proclaiming the family's innocence alongside Wendy's attorney, John Lauro. So Wendi still has her own attorney.
Okay.
And what I've mentioned in the past is Daniel Rashbaum seems to be more of a white collar crime attorney, not a defense attorney for crimes, for this type of crime, for murders. Let's see what else. But I want to go to the conclusion here, which I thought was interesting. Okay, so progress means patience. The internet had a bloom of Markel-related Facebook groups, message boards, Patreons, and YouTube channels focused on the case. And everyone is hungry for more and more to digest. But some close to the case urge patience. Of course, we're all eager to know what Katie said and eager for Charlie's eventual date in court. But today's rulings are far more satisfying than immediate answers. And this is from Karen Cyphers, who is a friend of the Markel family, she represents Justice for Dan group on Facebook and other things. And she provides courtroom reporting for the for this publication, Florida Politics, for this case. So she's often the author of these articles. And she's just saying that it's clear that the state has an exceptionally strong case against Charlie, perhaps made stronger by Katie's cooperation. So certainly it's not going to weaken the case. Is the evidence, or is the belief. And so it's ready to go when the defense is done with their work, which is fair. It's fair the defense gets an opportunity to go through this evidence. It's worth the wait, especially if it means securing justice against every single person involved in ripping Dan.
That is great.
Yes. So there you go.
And one thing that I learned last week from you and Judy was that they got WhatsApp. Finally, they got evidence from WhatsApp. Finally,
yes. Good.
That's exciting.
Yes, that's big.
Yeah.
Now it might not be everyone's WhatsApp. It might be Katie's, because there was some speculation about her going back and getting some phone records and other things back on her own after. Or around the guilty. Can't remember what it was before or after the verdict, but it was close to that time. Angela, they're still talking about the the wine club. Yeah, wine clubs are great. Okay, so Angela, sealed until Miss Magbanawat testifies. Do you think she's going to testify, or are they just going to use the information? Not that it matters, but I don't think she's going to testify. Yes, we are aware of that. So he asked for them to be sealed until she testifies or the case is over. If she testifies, and after the case is over, if she doesn't testify, then okay. Wheeler's. All righty. We do. We God love you, Pappy. Never met an Irishman I didn't like listening to. Oh, so Pappy's an Irishman. Okay. Best natural storytellers heaped in a tavern tradition. I love it. All right, Katie, any final thoughts? And thanks for reminding us about what Judy had said about the WhatsApp, because I forgot about that too.
No, I think we're good.
How do you feel about now that the verdict is done and you had so much emotionally invested into this? How do you feel? How you feel today?
I'm still trying to process it. But I do know that there's going to be so much more still coming between the Stephen Smith case, which like I said, I don't think Buster was involved. I think it's the drug stuff, but the drug stuff is going to be coming, and all the financial crimes. It's just crazy.
It's going to go on for a long, long, long time. Yeah, that was my question.
It's not over.
The next case. I think the next case coming up is the Daybells, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Too Deep. What is your next case, Chatters? I'm trying to think what else. I have a list in my community pages. I'm going to update that now that I can breathe a little this weekend, maybe.
And then I need to figure out how to get who I should be following for the Idaho murders. I do want to dig into that one.
Oh, right. Well, they're sealing so much about that. But I can't remember where I'm getting that. I kind of have that one sort of on holdish.
I know. Have they mentioned a trial date or anything yet?
I think they did. I'll look into that. We'll get that into the community page. All right, and we'll be live again next week. Back to our normal time. I think Wednesdays at noon. Yep. Now that the trial's over, we're not going live during the Murdaugh trials where nobody's watching us. Right. And Angela says she might go back to nonfiction. I actually did order a couple nonfiction books here. And Pappy says, "Thank you, Katie, for sharing your personal story." And that Pappy is glad you're here with us. I am too. Thank you, Katie. And Angela says, "I like when Katie's here. Please come back, Katie." I agree. I love having somebody to bounce things. I'm boring all by myself. I mean, it's just fun to have a second for sure. We love you, Katie. We're glad you're here. So,
all right, everyone. I love doing this.
We'll talk about this more next week. What case is next? I will get the docket back together in the community pages. If you're replaying this, hi, replayers, replay crew. We love you too so much. Feel free to comment. I try to get to all my comments when YouTube shows them to me. I don't always see all of them, so I do my best. And let us know in the comments also as you think of other cases or get in on my community pages for that too. So,
yeah.
And Julia, Katie, you are awesome and very courageous. Yes, you are. I'm so glad you got to the other end of that. That is such a compelling story. So, isn't it interesting what we both brought to this? Like, I got fleeced by lawyers once, and so yeah, but I don't hate all lawyers. Like, it doesn't take. But I didn't. That's what got me interested in the Murdaugh thing before the murders. Yeah. So I went in really not liking this man, to say the least. But I do still, even when Meg Banawa was sentenced, found guilty and then sentenced eventually. I don't take joy, and I don't mind that other people do. I don't mind that other people are celebrating. You do you, boo. But I personally don't. I just get it's very sobering. It's heavy to me. It's heavy.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel there ever will be justice. When somebody's been murdered, the injustice has happened. You can't go back and change that. Okay.
No.
So there will never be justice for Dan or Paul or Maggie. There's going to be a measure of it. There's going to be some measure, hopefully, for the family and friends and loved ones of the victims. But I never feel super great because it's a little empty. It's like, okay, well, it's just another sad ending to a really sad thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I always hope that people will turn themselves around and understand what they did. Okay. And Katie is hyped up on Mountain Dew. And yes, I love Karen's ciphers for sure. And Julia does agree with the soberness, of the situation. Okay, everyone, we're going to take off. We are going to take off, and we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend and try to enjoy your life. Stay happy. Yes. Don't get into situations where you feel like you want to murder somebody, please. Better answer.
Then don't get married. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, don't get married. That helps. So many of these are related to family issues. It's pretty sad. Okay, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. We appreciate you. And hi to the replay crew. We appreciate you too. Bye for now. See you next week.
Bye.